who don't know, what is emotional intelligence? Take us through a little bit about it.
Oh my goodness, it is the ability to be able to use, manage, understand your emotions in a healthy manner.
There I was, an upcoming HR professional. I was flying high, scoring. I was even deemed the best HR of the year.
Guys, I'm so happy to be here. We've addressed some hard things.
Beautiful people, welcome to A Glimpse of Growth with Dr. Dale. You are in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing with the right person. You guys know I always have a treat for you guys. We have a treat today. We are talking about vulnerability 2.0. 2.0. So the conversation today is going to be with, of course, the this lady, this beautiful soul matches my energy. So I'm just gonna bring her up so we can just get this conversation going because it's not the first time she's been here. And if if you're new to her, then you're gonna have to go to the YouTube channel, Dr. Dale Reports, and kind of check out the first point, vulnerability, that we talked about. We kind of like talked about the basics, and now today we're gonna go a little bit deeper because vulnerability is life. So I'm just gonna bring her up, the amazing Susan Bigler.
Hi, Dr. Dale. Thank you for having me.
Of course. You mean having you again?
Again,
You mean
having you back.
again? Because the conversation was so good last time. We even ran out of time. And I was like, man, I had some more points. I had some more questions. So of course we had to come back up in here. Right? So
Awesome.
Susan, you want to kind of tell everybody just, a sentence or two about who you are, what you do, and what's important to you.
Sure. Well, I'm Susan Bigler. I'm a benefits account manager in my real life, but I'm also a public speaker and an advocate for women empowerment. So my time is spent really helping women to reach their goals, find out what their purpose is, and then head towards that purpose. This is exciting to me because I get to share some of those tools that I learned and that I get to share with other women as we go along. So I'm super happy to be here. Thank you.
Yay. So this conversation is not when you guys hear vulnerability, I would like to know, what do you guys hear when you hear that word? If you guys don't mind sharing, putting it in the chat or in the conversation somewhere, when you hear vulnerability, what comes to your mind? What I've heard. Susan, you can tell, what you can tell us your experience. When I used to hear it, I used to hear the word, "Oh, you want me to be weak?" That's what you want me to be. Right? You hear that word, that's what you hear. What are your thoughts, Steph?
Yeah, it's funny you say that, Dr. Dale, because when I was talking with my husband about the power of vulnerability, that was his exact response was, wait, what? Vulnerability is a strength? And
Yeah.
so, it's perception. It's all in the perception. And we talked one time before about how dogs, animals, will make themselves vulnerable if they trust you. A dog will lay on his back and let you rub the belly if they trust you. And so it's not a sign of weakness. It's definitely a sign of strength.
100%. So the thought is, right, for those that have no idea what we're talking about. The thought is, it requires you to embrace your unique story, right? You embrace who you are, embrace your values. It talks about just accepting you as whoever you are, whatever that looks like, right? No one else can teach you to be you but you.
Well,
Nobody, no one
I'd
else
like,
can teach you to be you except you, but nobody knows you to help you, to take you to the next level like you do. Help me with that, Susan.
I'm laughing because I was having this exact conversation last night. Who am I? Who am I? And, we have so many people throughout our lives that pour into us who they think we are. And we have our parents telling
Mm.
us who they think we are. And we have our friends, our spouses, but none of those, I mean, all of that tends to create the person that we become, but we don't have to stay that person that they tell
No.
us we are. So we
Right.
have to find our identity in something other than what other people tell us. For me, it's what God's given me. That's where I find my
Mhm.
identity. Um, some people, it's all about self-reflection and self-awareness, but it sounds like an easy thing to find your identity, but it's not. It's a
It's
search, and it's
not.
a lifelong search.
And not only that, it's 'cause to your point, society's telling you who you are,
Mhm, mhm.
right? Your past is telling you who you are. That boss that said you were good for nothing, that teacher
Mhm,
that said you would never amount to anything, right?
mhm,
They're telling you who you are, right? And so you don't think that you're carrying all of these words, all of these thoughts, all of these experiences with you. Thought you left them behind, but you're not. You haven't. You brought them to who you are today. So vulnerability says tap into your inner strength. Tap into
mhm,
you. Do you like some people, because some you talk about God, some everybody don't believe in God, but that's where my faith lies. That's where
mhm.
Susan faith lies, right? You have to have something bigger than you.
Right,
You
right.
should believe in something bigger than you, because with all that is going on in this world, it's crazy out here.
Find something
Find
good.
something to hold on to and you run with that.
Yes, I have a
Right?
sign in my office that says "Cling to the good." Because
Yes,
we have to.
yes,
Yeah.
100%. That's and it's not only for personal life, right? It's
Mhm,
professional life, right?
mhm,
It's critical, right? That you're always developing yourself and trying to figure out who you are. Get to the bottom of that.
mhm.
It's about looking inward, not outward to inward, but inward to outward.
And accepting what you find. Sometimes just accepting the truth is
Mm.
not that easy because it doesn't always feel good. But that's what
Accepting the
lends us
truth.
but that's what lends us to changing it. I have a family member who one time said, "Well, that's just always the way I've been. I've just always been that way." And
Yeah.
I've said, "Well, if you choose to always be that way, then you will be, but you don't have to be. We can make
Mm.
changes at any point in our life. I don't care if you're 80 or 8."
100%. And in the workplace it's the same thing, right? This is how we've always done it. You know,
Right.
um, I can't tell you that's one of the sentences that I cringe when I hear it.
Yes.
I cringe because then because then you're holding on tighter to something that you're acting like it can't change.
Right.
If there's nothing else that changes, is change. Change is constant. So moving with the times, moving with as a relationship grows, you supposed to grow with it. You can't remain
Mhm.
the person that you were. I'm not the person I was yesterday.
I don't
Because
wanna be the person I
I
used
don't
to
want
be.
to be. Oh, I love that, Susan. I love that. Exactly. You don't
Yeah,
want to be the person. So you can't lead others effectively until you know who you are. Do you
right.
believe that, Susan?
I do believe that. And I think a good example of that is if we're leading someone, whether it be professionally or personally, if we're leading them to be their better selves, um, I need to be able to be honest with myself and then maybe pour out a little bit of what I've learned about myself, what I like, what I didn't like, and what I changed to allow them the opportunity to expand their mind and think about that in their situation.
So the question may be, because not so what we talked about, this first point
Mhm,
is talked about all about self-awareness, understanding you having a foundation.
mhm,
Susan's foundation, my foundation is in God, right?
mhm,
And then everything else branches out from there. So that's tapping into your self-awareness and understanding your personal, your inner thoughts, your continual self-reflection, finding and figuring out, not going and asking. You can go and ask people, hey, what are your thoughts about, what are your experiences of me? But I would suggest having that conversation with yourself first.
Yeah, a lot of
Right.
times I've been told that before, ask people for input if you're looking to change. And I'm not so sure how that is, because I think people tend to tell you what they think you want to hear. They don't they don't like to tell us the hard truth.
Susan, I'm going to say if you have a close friend or two or a close family member that ain't scared of hurting your feelings, that's the person you need to talk to. Sometimes we shy
Exactly.
away. We shy away from those who, no, I'm not going to ask. I'm like, I sometimes hesitate to ask my husband certain things because he knows me really well. And he has no problem telling me like it is, raw, in a good way. It doesn't matter. He give it to me raw. And sometimes I don't want to hear it. But I now know that I trust him to go because he's going to give it to me whether I want to hear it or not. I don't want people around me that's just a yes person.
The
Right?
biggest lessons that I have learned in my life have been when my feelings got hurt because someone was honest with me. I don't know if I froze or
I
if
think she.
did she
Okay.
freeze? Okay, so I'm going to continue.
Okay,
So
you're good. You're good.
good. Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
we're back. We're back. We're back.
Yeah, so I was saying that some of the biggest growth spurts that I've had have been a reflection of when someone really hurt my feelings with something they said about me, like really hurt my feelings. And then I walk away, and it may be the next day or it may be a year later, but I hear that and I'm like, oh, yeah, that person was right. I do need to get myself in order. That jerk was right for saying that.
And I ain't gonna lie, I agree with you 100%. So what can they do? Some people, some people do meditation to tap more into themselves and figure out who they are. Some people do yoga, that's me. Some people journal. You find activities that help you resonate with closer with but that would bring out the best in you, right? And that stuff, sometimes people shy away from it, but you gotta get closer to that. I mean, you want to be the CEO of you want to be able to be the person that somebody from your past, especially Susan, they come and they mention, that's not who you used to be. You were a liar. You did this, you did that. You're just like, yeah, you're talking about the Dale 10 years ago.
Yep.
I agree with you, but that's not who I am today. Oh,
There's an activity that I did, and I've done it on occasion through the years, but I made a list of people that hurt me. And sometimes I didn't even know the people's names. It could be like the guy at the Chevron station. Don't even know who he is, but for whatever reason, I'm harboring this resentment. So I make a list of who hurt me. I make a list of how I felt. And then beside that, what's my responsibility in that? And when I figured out what my little piece of responsibility was, it was amazing because I saw patterns that I have in my life that may not have been really good. And so it was taking the onus off of those strangers or those people that hurt me and putting it back on myself and saying, okay, I'm noticing that this, and this a lot. This is showing up often when I'm doing this practice. That's something I want to work on.
100%.
It takes a lot of mind dumping. It takes a lot of work. It's not easy to change it. The easy thing is to lay back and say, this is me.
Or blame it on everybody else, right?
Always everybody else's fault.
It's always everybody else's fault. They said you point a finger, there's 4 more fingers pointing back at you. Right? That's you heard that from a young person, from being a little girl, little boy. That's a real thing because you can't everybody else's fault. If everybody is saying the same thing about you, I would suggest checking yourself before you wreck yourself.
Check yourself before you wreck yourself.
So let's go to the second point, resilience. And Susan has an amazing story that I kind of want her to share on this. Sometimes leadership is often tested during challenging times, right? And that, it pushes you to tap into your inner ability to bounce back. Do
Mm.
you have what it takes to bounce back from life challenges? We had this hurricane situation that just happened in all of these different places. We have the holidays that are coming up, and life just keeps on pounding and pounding and pounding. Do you have what it takes to bounce back? Vulnerability says you do.
Mhm.
But what do you say? What do you have? Do you go and you take it out on everybody else? Do you start cursing everybody else? Do you just start blaming everybody else? What do you do? Susan, what are your thoughts? Share your story.
I'm going to share my story. Um, so I have a son, a daughter-in-law, and a sweet baby granddaughter that live in Boone, North Carolina. And when Hurricane Helene decided to have a vacation in Boone and wipe out Western Carolina, my son and his family lost their home. And in a matter of, I mean, this is unfortunate. It's been happening. And so they lost their home. The baby is just barely 6 months old. And Tyler, his name is Tyler, and they were able to get out of their home and find a place. I was on the phone with him during the storm when it was coming in, and then I lost contact with him for a while. And then when he called me back, he was already resolute that this was not going to stop them, that he was going to get
Yeah.
them, take care of his family. I'm going to take care
Yeah.
of my family. I want his words to me were, I want to be that guy, Mom. I want to be that guy
Mm,
who takes care of his family. So we all need to be that guy or that girl when troubles come. And so within a week, they lost their home, they found temporary shelter, and now they are living in another place because he didn't wait. He was resolute in, I'm going to go find us a place to live. I can't live in this hotel room with my dog, my wife, my kid. I can't do. And so in part of that, what my son had to learn to do was be vulnerable and ask for help.
mm,
He was my kind of hard-hearted son. It was always kind of looking out for himself up until the last
uh,
couple of years. And what he had to admit, he called me and said, Mom, this is so embarrassing. I don't have
interesting.
underwear. I don't have
Yeah.
socks. I have nothing. I don't even have a toothbrush. I
Yeah.
never thought I would find myself in this position.
Wow.
And so he allowed me to post out on socials to ask for help. And that was a big deal. It was a big deal for him because he has a lot of pride, had a lot of pride in him as a man and as a family, a leader of a family. And then when I was asking for help, I felt a little vulnerable too because
I bet.
I wanted to be the one that could help them,
I
but I
bet.
couldn't help them, not to the extent that they needed it. So
Yeah.
we both learned big lessons about putting it out there. And man, did our friends and family and perfect strangers come through, because without their support, they wouldn't have been able to move into this new place. And they're basically settled. So now Tyler and Anna's whole focus is helping the others in their community. Now that they've got their legs under them, they want to go out and help. And it's just been a beautiful story in just a matter of 7 days to see how his heart has changed, his soul has changed because of the impact of this crisis, and how he chose to respond instead of freaking out and waiting for the government to help and waiting for programs. He picked up his bootstraps and he was like, I'm going. I'm taking care of my family. And I really admire that. I'm very proud of him for doing that, and for allowing me to put out there his vulnerability.
Well, Susan, I'm gonna say, which I didn't realize, I didn't notice before when you mentioned this earlier, that it speaks to the inner workings, you, to you as a mother, when you poured into him,
Mhm.
because he didn't, when the minute he called you without nothing happening, and all he looked around and is what he saw was chaos, or need, right? He saw lack. He said, I don't care what's going on around me, we're
Mhm.
gonna overcome this. I need
Yes.
to, be a better person. Let me see what I can do. So he grabbed onto skills that he didn't really feel comfortable with, right? And people will
Exactly.
call them soft skills, but they're the hardest skills, right?
Mhm.
They're the hardest one because true leadership shines when the
Mhm.
pressure is on, right?
It's so true. And one of the things I remember him calling me one night, and he was like, Mom, I have to vent because I can't do this to my wife and my baby. I need a safe place to vent. And I was his safe place. And I'm so grateful for that.
My goodness,
We all
so
need a safe
resilient.
place to vent.
Yes, yes, yes. Somebody that's not going to judge you or look
Right.
down on you for saying what you're saying. Somebody that you and the thing about it is that you have held that space for him, even though for the past couple of years you didn't think that he was going to ever, come to you like this, but you held the space. You see what
Mhm.
I'm saying? Do
Yep.
you have somebody in your life, everyone out there, that
Mhm.
can hold the space for you to be human, in whatever capacity that looks like? That I love this was so timely.
Mhm.
Resilient leaders don't crumble under the weight of challenges. This is what vulnerability does. It allows you to rise above, to adapt, to inspire others. And now he got the help that he needs. He put his mask on. He's like, all right, who else can I help? Let me go figure out what I can do for my
Mhm.
community. That's what it's
Yep.
all about. That's
Yep.
exactly what it's all about. So the question for you, each one of you guys out there, what are you doing? What are you doing, to rise above what's going on around you in
Mhm.
your own life, personally and professionally? Right? So let's get to the other point. Empathy, leading with a heart. Empathy is powerful. People, they say true leaders lead with empathy, right? What does that mean? Inward quality that allows leaders to connect deeply with themselves and others. Does Are you like Susan's son? Susan, what's your son's name? Let's
Tyler.
call him Tyler.
Tyler.
Are you like Tyler, that show you're walking with your heart and says, this is who I am. This is what I have to offer. You're not fake. You're not pretending to be something that you're not. Right? You're genuinely listening, genuinely caring, and reaching out in the most authentic way. Is
Mhm.
that something that you are doing? And that's what empathy breeds, right? It's saying, let's see what other people, let's see how we can help. Let's open that door for somebody else, right? Because it's not all about me, 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 and me, and me.
So I have a question for you, Dr. Dale, on
Yeah.
that topic. How do you think people who have not had the same experiences are able to empathize? So if I haven't experienced what it is that you're experiencing, and you're looking for that safe space, how do you empathize with someone that you can't really relate with the circumstance they may be in?
If you haven't been through exactly what they went through, does not mean that you cannot sympathize with them, right? You cannot sympathize with them because, look at it from the other one. You're like, well, I haven't, you know, had been in that particular situation where I had my house taken away from me from a hurricane, but I can imagine what it feels
Mhm.
like to not have a home. That must be
Mhm.
devastating. Well, you may even say in your head, you don't want to say this out loud, but you probably may say, well, I'm glad that's not me. You know, Les Brown says there we are in always three stages of our in life. We're either going into a problem, we're in one, or we're about to go, or we're in one right now. We're in one, about to go into one, or we're coming out of one, right?
Mhm.
So, and sometimes we're even in all of them at the same time. So the question is, what are you sympathizing with others just because you haven't been in the situation? There's you as a human being, because emotions are universal.
Mhm.
Yeah, guilt, that's an emotion, that's universal. You know
Mhm.
what it is to, and Susan, you mentioned earlier survivor's guilt, because man, I haven't had anything like that happen to me. I don't even know how to relate. I mean, should I go do something? Go do something.
Do
Do
something.
something.
Get
Go
out of
do
yourself.
something. Do something. So I was telling Stephanie that, sometimes for my birthday, which is coming out in a couple of weeks, I go and I volunteer at shelter or feeding South Florida, these places, and like pack foods and stuff, because you got to get out of your environment. And you can't say, "Oh, I want to help." Either you put your money where your mouth is, or put your time where your mouth is.
Mhm.
You got to do one or the other. You
Yes.
can't just talk. You can't just, put words out there. You got to put your actions behind it,
Mhm.
right? So
Yes.
going back into your community and pouring into them, what
Mhm.
can you do for that to make that better, right?
Yeah.
The most effective leaders understand that leadership is about serving others.
Mm. So true. I think from a leadership standpoint, I'm shifting from personal to professional now. And
Yeah, this
from
yeah.
from leadership standpoint, if we don't actively listen to our employees or make them feel that we're approachable, then we're not going to be worth anything to them. So the reason I asked that question is because we all have different experiences, but we also all have a heart. And the golden rule, treat others the way you want to be treated, it applies to any of the circumstances that come along in life. And so from a professional standpoint, as long as as leaders we're approachable, we actively listen, and then we can respond. Perhaps it's with just a listening ear. Maybe it's offering resources. Maybe it's offering part of our story that we can relate to. I think that the empathy from a leadership standpoint is huge, because there's so many employees who stay at a job that they're burned out in, that they're feeling the rut. But again, it's easier just to sit back and stay in it instead of approaching the management and saying, "Hey, I have some ideas. Maybe we can do this. Maybe this is more productive or more efficient, a better way to work." And we need to have a leader that's going to listen to us and say, "Bring me your ideas, bring me your troubles, bring me your gripes, and let's see if we can find solution to it."
Because the
Same thing
question
as in
is,
life.
if you don't, what happen, if you don't do that and let them feel like they're a part of the process, then when they treat it like it's not their company, or treat it like it's not something that's vital or priority in their life, you're going to see it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
You're going to see it. And then don't get mad when you see it, because you are not giving them a seat at the table.
Mhm. And that leads
It's
to quiet quitting, right? The term quiet
Yes,
quitting, that's when
quite
that happens.
exactly. And
Mhm.
they're quitting now. They're not even that means they're not doing anything. They're just done, right?
Yep.
And that's and think about all the different generations, right? Everybody see it differently.
Mm.
They're lazy. They don't want to do anything. They're like everybody. If you have to listen, you have to listen. You have to listen.
And we have to make changes. If I
Yes.
go to a leader and let's just say the leader doesn't listen to me,
Yeah.
they just, pat me on the head and say, "Okay, I'm glad you told me nothing."
Yeah.
Then
Go
I
on.
have a choice at that point. I can either choose to continue on in my work ethic and do my work with the spirit of excellence, or I can quietly quit and say, "Forget it. I'm just here for a paycheck," and find no joy in my work. Susan prefers to find joy in my work. So I have to find my purpose. So sometimes if we don't have a leader to help us figure out what our purpose is in our job, then we've got to figure it out for ourselves, because we applied for that job in the first place.
So
Why do we apply for it?
I agree 100%, because you're at a job, you already talked to them about it, they ain't doing nothing. Why are you still there?
You have a choice.
You have a choice. Nobody's forcing you to be there, right?
Exactly.
And then there's a lot of opportunities out there. Find something else to do that's gonna make you run, skip, and joy. To
Yes.
be a right. There's something that's gonna move you passionately, and that
Mhm.
goes back to listening to yourself. When you listen to your inner self and you do that self-reflection work, that self-awareness work, then you only want to be true to yourself.
Mhm.
You want to find your purpose. You want to be purpose driven. You don't want to be in a location, at a job, in a relationship, that is not going to help you be that best version of yourself. You just don't. You know what I mean? And you don't want to be happy, because what happens is that you start taking it out in all of these other relationships that you have, right? And you think you're not it's not affecting your relationships, but it is. I guarantee you stop and you ask someone that that you're in a relationship with, whether husband, close friend, a mom, dad, or whatever, a sister. You ask them, hey, how are you experiencing me? What are there some areas you think I can improve on? You're gonna get the ugly truth. Don't do it if you're not ready for it. If you want to continue hiding in the shadows, then you keep doing that. But you got to be able to ready to face the ugly truth. And when they share those things with you, it's not them just being rude, or how can they say those things about you? They're telling you things that you need to improve on, and you can make a decision, to Susan's point, to move on those things or not. But don't sit here and say they're forcing me and pointing fingers at everybody else. You got to start taking responsibility, you guys. Your career, your life, it's your responsibility. It is your responsibility. The job or the manager or the company or whatever, they can help you get to whatever position or career, whatever you want. But it's not their job to, oh, you came into the job. Once you do this assistant position, then you go into the supervisor position, then you're going to the director position. If they don't have it, then it's not gonna happen. So you gotta make choices to see, all right, I want to be a manager one day. I've been at this assistant position for the past 5 years. What are you gonna do? You gotta move, right? It's time for you to move on, because you already got the experience. You already learned all that you can learn here. And if you want to level up, you got to make the move. You got to do the hard things. You got to do the research. You got to see where you want to go, and then measure your experiences and degrees and certification or whatever to that, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
because people want to say, they want to point fingers, and they don't have, my job doesn't have a career path, and it doesn't have this. Some jobs just don't.
Right.
Some jobs
Again,
don't.
go back to the purpose. Are you there just for a paycheck? Are you there to
Right.
help someone? Are you there? Why did you take the job in the first place? I mean, we
And
all like the paycheck, but if there's not an underlying purpose, or if we're not finding our purpose outside of that job,
100%.
we have to figure that
Authentic leadership means owning who you are, your flaws and all,
out.
right? Leading from that space. No one else can teach you how to be the best version of you. It starts with you looking inward to figure out what that best version of you is going to look like. And the best version of you is not you hurting someone or hurting yourself. It's not.
And sometimes
Okay.
we don't even realize that we're doing that.
Ooh,
Self-
Susan, we going
self-talk-
deep. We going
Self-talk
deep.
Yeah. Self-talk is that can really hurt, because what we're saying to ourselves. So we have to keep in mind that the way we speak to ourselves is going to direct our path, and the way that we speak to others could direct their path. And so I don't want to be the one that is breaking down and complaining and grumbling. I want to be the one who's building them up, building myself up. I mean, nobody's going to be the bigger cheerleader for us than ourselves. Maybe our moms.
If you have a good mom.
I have a great mom.
And I met your mom. She's amazing. God bless her. So some people don't have the right. Where did you get that negative self-talk from?
Right.
Where is that coming from? You got to go deeper and figure out what that is. Because if it's based on what people said about you, you need to start changing and start to figure out what you are saying about you to kind of change what that talk is going to look like, right? Start changing your speech about yourself. Facing
and about our coworkers. I mean, my husband came in the other night, and he was, how was your day, honey? And it was fine. And then he started grumbling. And I said, well, it doesn't sound like it was fine. It sounds like you were a little frustrated. I'm not frustrated. I'm like, maybe you're a little frustrated. It's okay to be frustrated.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
admit that you're frustrated. It's
Right,
okay.
admit.
It's okay. It's
Right.
going to pass, but
Because
get it out.
everybody wants to be okay. It's okay to not be okay.
It's okay not to be okay. I have an
It's okay.
acronym for the word fine that I can't say in public because F is the first word. but but it is, I will not say I'm fine because someone gave me an acronym one time. I'm not going to tell you
And
what the
it's
first word
and
is,
it
but the
stuck
second
with
word
you?
is insecure, neurotic, and what was the E? I don't even remember. I just remember being insecure and neurotic.
And those are not emotions or feelings that you want to continue to have on a day-to-day
No,
basis. No.
no. Mm-mm,
No, not at all. The most
mm-mm.
inspiring leaders are those that are real, that are honest, and are vulnerable.
Yes.
You want to be real with yourself, you want to be honest with yourself, and you want to be vulnerable, not scared to speak up and
Mm-hmm.
say, I don't know this, or I
Mm-hmm.
can't figure this out, and then reaching out to others that do know, right? And being okay with asking for help, you know?
One of the words that I've tried to remove from my vocabulary over the last, I'm going to say 20 years, is the word should. I should
Mm,
do this. You should do that. I feel like that's a pressure word, one that can give us a lot of guilt or shame, because who should do what? I just am really
true,
averse to that word.
true, true.
So, for those of you out there that are listening, please try to take that word out of your vocabulary, whether you're talking about yourself or someone else, because that's a negative connotation to put out to yourself and to someone else. Yeah.
It's I cannot agree with you more on that, because then you're putting yourself in a box, or you're
Mhm,
giving your limitations, right?
mhm,
And I am such a firm believer. There's a sentence on my Facebook that I have: free to be. And they're free to be whatever the heck Dr. Dale chooses to be. Today I may not choose to smile. Tomorrow is another day. Let's figure that out, right? But I know my status quo is, I'm not going to stay in this funk for a
mhm,
long period of time. I'm going to give myself a limit, right? I'm going to put, like, for the next 3 hours, I'm just going to like ravel in this situation and try to figure out how I can whatever. And if I can't figure out within these 3 hours, I'm letting it go, because
mhm,
something else is going to come. And that means I'm trying too hard. I just got to let it flow, right? I just got to let it come to me. And usually 9 times out of 10, the Holy Spirit, the energies align, and I figure things out, right? So it's you putting, don't put limitations on yourself, and stop
mhm.
putting limitations on other people.
Yes.
Like, just stop expecting people to do something for you and say something for you because you would do it for them. Well, I would do this for you, so I don't understand why you don't do it for me. Maybe that's not who they are.
Right. Expectations, a whole different
Expect
topic. Yeah.
My goodness, stop expecting so much from people. People are
Mhm,
beat. People are beat. People are burnt out. They're tired. And the thing about it is that, Susan, imagine talking to someone that don't even know that they are at their wits' end,
right.
right? Until something else happen, a
Mhm,
catastrophe happens, and
mhm.
then they're like at the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That
Mhm,
stuff is hard. And they could be up here one day, and the next day they're like ready to be goners, like unalive themselves. You
and that
don't
can
know.
happen in a minute if we don't
Right.
purge out that hurt
Right.
and that negativity. We have to purge it.
We have to
Mhm,
stop pretending. Stop with the fakeness. Stop.
mhm,
Just be honest with yourself. Go and tell that person you are sorry.
mhm,
Go tell them, tell yourself, forgive yourself.
mhm.
Be, willing to let these things go, because that's what's going to stop you from flowing and being the best version of yourself. And you carry these things, and I always speak about this book because I live by this book. The body keeps score. You are carrying stress within your body. This research today is there, the science is there behind this, the data is there, that you're carrying this stuff, all this stress that you carry, that you're carrying all these issues and conflicts and problems and stuff. If you don't flow through them, meaning move through them and let them go, they remain in your body. And then years later, you wonder why you have all of these sicknesses,
Toxic.
right?
It's toxic.
Toxic, right? Heart attacks and all this stuff, because you are holding grudges and you're not, you just stop it already. This is, if you haven't thought about it before, this is your conversation, a wake-up call conversation for you to start thinking about it, because bold leaders require inner strength. And you are a leader in your home, you're a leader at work, you're a leader at church, you're a leader in all your different groups. You are a leader of yourself, and it requires you to stand firm in your convictions, even when it's difficult or unpopular. It's okay to be the one that stand up and say, I'm not going to stand here and allow you to talk to her in that way anymore. I'm tired of it, and it has to stop, and I'm going to go talk to someone about it. Susan, how many times I've been in those kinds of that scenario when I was coming into my career, and just witnessing all of this stuff being done to myself or being done to someone else. And I'm wanting to say or do something about it, but I don't know what to do, or I don't want to lose my job, or
Right.
all of this stuff, right? So it's time, it's time for you to speak up.
Can I
It's
share a
time.
story about that loosely ties in with what you're talking about, Dr. Dale? And
Please.
it's around victimization, because I feel like that sometimes our
Mm,
society gets stuck in a centrifuge of playing the victim. And
yeah.
that is really an issue in our country today, in our society, is all of us. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what your income or your education. In our society, that seems to be an undercurrent of being a victim. And that's something that we have to change. We have to start taking that responsibility of our own actions and reactions. And we also have to not take on other people's. So let me tell you a story. A friend of mine has a baby, and she was in her condo. She was telling me this story the other night because she was
Mm-hmm.
talking about, how do I handle this with my husband?
Mm-hmm.
Her husband had the baby and was coming home. The baby was sleeping, so he texted her and said, "Would you meet me at the door? The baby's sleeping. I don't want to get my keys out, and I need some
Mm-hmm.
help." Well, she
I do
didn't hear
that all
the
the
phone.
time.
She didn't hear the phone. It was in the other room charging. So when he came into the house, the baby was awake and crying, and he said, "Well, she wouldn't have been crying if you had gotten my message and opened the door." And so she took that on as, "Oh my gosh, I wasn't ready for him." And I'm like, "Time out a minute. Hold on. What
Yeah.
could he have done differently?" He could have set the baby down, gotten his keys, opened the door, and then walked in. The baby wouldn't have been awake. So I'm telling all of you out there, stop taking responsibility for things that you have no control
Control over.
over. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not
My
taking that guilt
goodness.
trip anymore. Those
A
bags,
hundred percent.
that luggage is gone. I'm not doing it. I'm not taking that trip. And so I
Houston,
want to encourage you
I love
that
that.
if someone puts some, if they're blaming you for the circumstance that they're in, take your part in it. And if you don't have a part in it, ask the question, what could you have done differently?
Yeah.
What's another way we could have handled this? That's from a relational standpoint. We have, and whether it's work or play or home, we have to be able to say, wait a minute, I'm not that powerful. What could you have done different? Those
Yeah.
words, those questions will get us out of that victim mentality and empower someone else to take responsibility for their actions and reactions.
100%. My goodness. Because what happens is that she carried that with her,
Mhm.
and then the conversation didn't, she wasn't there to have or she wasn't at the capacity to have the conversation to turn it around and say,
Right.
okay, I mean, I guess I could have owned this part. But what do you think I could have done better? What would you have done if you were me in that
Mhm.
situation, to kind of take it, let's really close the loop, right? Let's
Yeah.
really look at it from all the sides,
Hmm.
right? And not just your perspective. And that's something that I struggled with for quite some time, looking at it from everybody's perspective, or from, with my husband, looking at it from his perspective. Sometimes you are so narrowed in, like this,
Yep. Yep.
right? And you are just looking at it from your little point of view. But let me
Mhm.
tell you, you take off those lens and you realize, oh, there are peripherals, oh, there's a rear view, oh, there's
Yeah.
so many different areas that, that somebody, you tell that somebody else that situation, they would have even like, oh, I wouldn't even have bothered to even text her. I would, I wouldn't have done none of that, because I didn't
Mhm.
want to like inconvenience her with whatever she was doing or he was doing, like all of this stuff, right?
She
So
said she never even thought about asking him. She just took that and
yeah,
never even thought about having the conversation, but she was holding on to it. It was days later and she was still
it
holding
was
on to it.
it was bothering her. It was bothering
Yes.
her because you don't know what that's gonna do to somebody else, right? Because
Mhm.
again, everybody carries things based on, their past and culture and whatever. They're carrying things with them, and you don't know how that scenario experience, or what you say to that person, how it's gonna affect them. Right? Which is why it's important for you to be careful, not only what you say, is how you say it,
Mhm. That's
right?
right.
It's how you approach the situation. You got to approach the situation with tact. And,
Mm.
going back to the workplace, you, a new leader, you don't even know how to, you can't just shout at people. You can't just, talk down to people. You
Mhm.
can't, profanity at people and expect people to just be smiling and being okay with that. These are grown ASS adults.
Well, and on the flip side, you can't only give niceties without backing
Yes,
it up with action.
right.
Words
So
matter and actions behind it matter more.
you got to look at it from both all
Mhm.
perspective. And the thing about it, Susan, is that, isn't it more beautiful if you have everybody say around that table, everybody have their say. Now you everything is on the table, so
Mhm.
now we can create a really good music jam, because everybody put what rhythm they like.
Mhm.
It's even better now, instead of just looking at it from my, because if it's just me, I'm just gonna want to play some salsa all day.
I'm with you, Dr. Dale. I'll take that salsa. Love it.
Everybody is, that's gonna be their thing, right? Not That's not everybody's thing. I was talking to this guy when I finished doing a workshop, and he said that I would have never ever think to share my inner thoughts with my wife about
Oh.
this scenario, about how I was actually feeling about.
Mhm.
I was like, what? That's
Mm.
And I felt that for him so much.
Mhm.
I felt that for him so much. So he's carrying he's carrying a different relationship inside of
Mhm.
him
Mhm.
than he's actually experiencing with his wife.
Yes, he's so bound up. That just hurts my heart that he's bound and not able to be free. And
Right?
there's such great freedom in
It
being
it is. It
authentic.
is it is so freeing. When he said that to me, he said, but now that you have said, we're of course talking about emotional intelligence. He's like, emotional intelligence is just an interesting thing. He said, I guess I could be a little bit more open. And then he quickly jumps to, because he's defending, right? That offensive, right? He's like, but then that means the potential for her to maybe say something to hurt me
Oh.
may come about. And I said, and he's like, well, yeah, if it's my wife, I guess I it depends if she's coming from a place of love, then I shouldn't take it as she's trying to hurt me. I
Right.
said,
They're on the
I said,
same team.
yeah. And he's like, wow. He was like, his mind was like blown. And that was like so refreshing to me, right? When you unlock, a part of you, a part of your mind, that your neurons, like a part of you, and that you didn't experience, or you wasn't experiencing awarely, you wasn't aware of it, for all these years.
Yeah.
And that's where the beautifulness comes from.
Hmm. For real.
That's where the beautifulness comes from. And that's what
Mhm.
Susan is talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Being just free to just be, to live your life, to be, to just be authentic. I can't go around, like, I can't have something on my soul and my heart for a long period of time and just not let the person know about whatever it is that I'm feeling, right? So I wanted to give shout out to my brother. My brother was watching us earlier, and he put this comment here. I'm watching Amazing Motivational Points. Leslie Ling is my brother, my youngest brother. He's my oldest brother, but he's the youngest of the two. So I wanted to give him shout out for stopping in and supporting this conversation. Susan, we're kind of wrapping it up. So, I want to, what is it that you want to leave with everyone as it relates to vulnerability? Because we went deep, we went deep, and then we came back up for some air, and then we went back deep again. Because I feel like, if see, let me see if you agree with me. Vulnerability is something that is ongoing, right? You're always digging up and learning something new about yourself, and you never really arrive. Oh, I got it all now.
No.
No. So let me, is that what you experience as it relates to vulnerability?
Absolutely, it is. If we ever feel really comfortable with ourselves, we might want to do a little more insight because there's always going to be a way that we can be better, our better selves. So, my last assignment to those of you who listen is figure out the patterns in your life, the patterns
Mm-hmm.
that hurt you, the patterns that frustrate you or anger you. Make that list I was talking about and figure out what your piece in it is, and then change that in yourself. It is life changing, and allow yourself to be loved for who you are, not for who people want you to be or who you want to be. You are enough already. You are
Mm.
specially made and valued and loved. So be proud of who you are, even if you have a checkered past. Who a lot of us do. Don't be afraid of that, because my mom says she does. um, we need to be able to speak to that without fear of being rejected, because it's part of our story. And so I'm going to challenge your listeners um, to what's the word I'm thinking of? Embrace your past, embrace what's made you you, and get rid of the rest. Get rid of the lies and start telling yourself who you really are. Who do you want to be? And then start taking the steps to be that person.
Yes. Yes. Because there's a gap, right? And if that gap is, if you see that there's a gap, let's close it.
Yeah. We have a
Let's,
choice.
yeah.
You can live, miserable in a rut, or you can live happy in a rut, or you can change up your whole life and become a whole new person. It's awesome what
Mm.
we have the capabilities to do as a human being.
100%. Susan, I do want to ask your mom if she
Oh,
wanted to say anything
mom
before
just
we
ran
get
out.
out of here. She
She
did.
just ran out. Yes. Pooh.
Okay, okay.
Thank
that's
you, though.
that's perfectly fine, Susan. This was amazing. I'm not gonna say that we probably gonna have this conversation again and do a 3.0 probably before the year ends, or before, or when the year starts, because 2025 is coming, and look, a new year is coming. A great time to revamp yourself, to get to know yourself, right?
Yes.
There's never, it's never any time, best time like right now. like right now.
Well,
There's
listen,
never
we're
any.
coming up to the holidays. And so this is something else that I just want to touch on for a second,
Yes,
because the
please.
holidays can be very stressful for some of us. We're around family, we're putting on the happy face, and that's all fine and good. But maybe this holiday season, we slow down and think about really that attitude of gratitude instead of focusing on what is causing us angst. We focus on what we're grateful for, who we're grateful for, and not put on that happy face. Like, be honest with your family. If you can't be honest with your family, be honest with some friends. But this is the time of year where too many people become who they're not, because these Hallmark commercials
Mm.
are on, the Publix commercials that makes us cry. It's a beautiful time of the year, but it's also a really tough time for a lot of us mentally and emotionally. And so I want to encourage you that you are good. You are good. And so cling to that truth, cling to what is good, and know that if you don't like something about yourself or someone else, then change yourself or change your responses or reactions to someone else. Family
Mm-hmm.
time can be a little stressful. So if you have family that you're battling up against, well, you know what? You can't fight with silence. So instead of jumping into
Mm.
that argument, maybe you just say, well, I hear you, and walk away. Let's keep peace. And that means inner peace and peace with each other. It's so important.
What did you say, Susan? You can't fight with
You
silence.
can't fight with silence.
But what if I this conversation that's, that Uncle whatever Tommy just said, it's really getting me, riled up. Why can't I just give him a piece of my mind? If I do
Well,
that, I mean, and versus being silent, isn't that better?
well, you mean you've got to be right? You've got to prove
Yeah.
that you're right?
Yes. Yes.
Well, maybe he's talking from his perspective. Or maybe you disagree and you just agree to disagree. It's okay to disagree. I know that personally, I have removed myself from situations. I've just said, okay, and walked away. Maybe under my breath, in my mind, I'm fighting it. But to that
Yeah.
person, I know that I'm not going to make a difference and change their mind at that point. So
Right.
I think we just have to listen to our inner spirit and keep peace as much as possible without hurting ourselves.
And to add on to what you said too, to not make a difference in that person about this particular conversation or scenario or experience, right? It's
Right.
not you writing the person off. Oh, I'm not talking to him because he is a nutbag and he don't believe or agree with what I say about this particular subject. We don't
Mhm.
have to agree on everything, but I love you to death. I don't have to agree with you on every single thing, right? I can love you and disagree with you on this particular
Yes.
subject.
Yes. My brother and I have that conversation all the time because there are certain things we totally disagree on, but we love each other. And we know that that's the number one point is we're just not going to talk about those things. Dr. Dale, my mom just got back. Can she say hello?
Do it.
Hey, Dr. Dale. It's so good to see you again.
Hi.
Yeah.
Oh, so you came back? Yay! So you have some words for us before we get out of here?
You have any words for the
Yeah.
listeners?
I just want to say how proud I am of Susan.
Right.
She's so wise. She always
Agreed.
knows the right thing to say to make you feel better. And she's a help to so many people. So many people. And I
You ain't
just
gotta
love
tell
her to
me. I know.
pieces. She's mine.
Well, thank you, Mom. But that wasn't, I don't think, what she was talking about.
Oh,
No,
what are you
that's but
talking about?
Susan, this is no, it's perfect because that showed that because some I've had mothers that don't even big up their sons and their daughters. They don't even give them props, right? They're not around or they don't care. You know how many little girls and little boys wish that they had their mom to say those words about them?
My mom's always
It's
been the best cheerleader ever.
I'm telling you, like, just to say, I'm proud of you. You always do the right thing. You are helping other people. You, that is life. That was life for me. That was for me.
She
So
helps
thank you.
people that other people don't even know about.
Know about.
Because she
Right.
doesn't brag about it. She's very humble about it.
Yeah.
And spends a lot of her time helping other people, especially
Nice.
me. Because I'm getting old and I need help.
Your mom is so self-aware.
Oh, totally.
Susan,
Listen,
she
I have
is
watched,
so
that's a whole different, we
self-aware.
could do a whole show on that because I've seen her change. We were talking about it the other day. I said, over the
Yeah.
last so many years, she
Yeah.
has just evolved. It's awesome.
Really?
I'm the one she was talking about when she said, "Oh, that's just me. I'm not going to change." But I'm trying.
I was trying to be anonymous.
You see, she don't care. At this point in time in her life, she is transparent.
Totally. And I love it.
Oh, yeah. I'm an open book.
Susan, we're definitely going to bring you and your mom back on, both of you, to have an official conversation on from her point of view, right? All of her wisdom and her point of view, and from all that she's seen and to where we are today. That would be a great conversation, I think. So, Mom, you already know you're invited to the a glimpse of growth.
Goody. I have so much to say.
She does. I bet she does. Steph, Susan, this is it. Like we're done. We're at the top of the hour. I don't want to rob you of no more of your time because we gonna keep going. Like, we can keep going
all day long. Thank you so much, Dr. Dale, for having me back. I really appreciate it. Thank you to the listeners. Be your best self out there.
Yeah. And of course, Susan is on LinkedIn. If you guys interested, her name, Susan Bigler, that's her. Feel free to connect. She is gonna be back because there's great things in store for Susan and for you and for all of us. So thank you so much, Stephanie. We're ready to get out of here. Bye. Thank you for being here and supporting this channel. If you enjoyed this episode and this content, it would mean a lot to me if you would take a few seconds to ensure you are subscribed to A Glimpse of Growth with Dr. Dale. Click the notification bell to receive notification. Share it with someone you think may need it. And let's continue to become more intelligent with our emotions. Thank you. See you later.